Hello, my name is Timothy Johnson, and I'm a senior undergraduate who will be graduating in May with a degree in political science with an emphasis in international affairs, with minors in Southeast Asian studies, Chinese studies, and history. I'm also a FLOSS Fellow studying Bahasa Indonesian. The topic of my presentation today will be on the causes of the Free Aceh movement in Indonesia. The Free Aceh movement is a religious nationalist movement founded on December 4th, 1976 by Hassan di Tiro. He is the last descendant of the last Sultan of Aceh. The movement is also known as Gerakan Aceh Merdeka, or GAM for short. The purpose of the movement was not to establish an Islamic state, rather an independent one free from the Indonesian Republic. It used guerrilla-style fighting tactics focused on the Indonesian military forces. Its history is divided up into three phases: GAM 1, GAM 2, and GAM 3. GAM 1 was from 1976 to 79, when it was small and ill-equipped and easily suppressed by the central government. GAM 2 was from 1989 to 91, when it was stronger and well-equipped but faced harsh suppression from the Indonesian government. And GAM 3 was in 1999 from 2005, when the movement was at its peak. My paper and this presentation will focus on the expansion of the religious nationalist movement in order to gain a better understanding of the religious and ethnic violence that took place. I will be looking at three major factors that contributed to the rise of violence: historical mistreatment, grievances felt by the Achenese people, and a rise in religious nationalism. The historical mistreatment of the Aceh starts when the Dutch colonized the region. Aceh was an independent nation before it was being colonized, and when the Dutch and Indonesian created the republic, Aceh was included, much to their dismay. A 1950s rebellion led by the region military governor called for more autonomy and independence from the central government, but this was easily squashed. But eventually this led to negotiations where Java was going to grant Aceh the title of special region. When Suharto took power, this deal fell through and upset the region and its people. The mistreatment and abuse of the region politically is one of the reasons why GAM came to power and gained its prominence. Next, the grievances felt by the Aceh people also played a role in their bad view of the government. The Aceh rebelled many times, including an instance where they burned down a police station when an officer was reported of sexually assaulting an Aceh woman. Another instance was when the rebels burned down a hotel thought to be a prostitution center. 8,000 people also destroyed a government building which was going to host a circus, which was very offensive to its Islamic leaders. In 1990, Suharto ordered 6,000 military troops to the region to establish a military operations zone, also known as DOM. The military had complete freedom to do as they pleased in the DOM so long as they halted the rebellion. It is estimated that 2,000 to 10,000 people died due to the brutal crackdown by the military. Suppression did not stop after Suharto, as in 1999 there was a massacre of peaceful protesters in the city of Lokesimawe, and in the same year there was a bombing of an Islamic boarding school in Buting Atau. In 2003, there was a series of unjust arrests and tortures by the Indonesian military. Methods such as electric shock and burning by cigarettes were used to get confessions from suspected GAM supporters. Arrests were made with little or no evidence, and defense counsels of the Achenese barely participated in court. Economic suppression also played a big role. Hassan Ditiro claimed that the central government in Java was using the resources and revenue from Aceh to benefit Java and the Javanese people alone. Perhaps one of the biggest reasons why GAM gained a lot of prominence was because of the grievances felt by the Aceh in terms of resources and jobs. Foreign nations began to come into the region to extract liquid natural gas, and companies had planned to build an industrial complex in North Sumatra, just adjacent to Aceh. The Achenese protested, wanting the jobs that the complex would bring into their region, especially if the companies were going to extract their resources. Eventually, the companies agreed to the terms. After opening the complex, though, the Achenese claimed that the firm was discriminating against Achenese people and not hiring enough locals Ditiro was also affected firsthand as he was outbid by a U.S. company to build a pipeline in the region. It seemed as if the central government favored outside investment instead of supplying local people with the means to work and create revenue. GUM was not opposed to the facilities themselves, but it did object to the royalty payments the central government received from the firms to work on Acehnese land, and the Aceh received no payments or royalties for the work that was being done in their region. The suppression by the government in both killings and economic mistreatment led to a distrust in the government by the Aceh. This was the basis of GUM and served as a narrative for the rebellion. From the historical mistreatment to the brutal killings and economic discrimination, the Acehs had no faith in Java, and this led to a larger support of GUM. We can connect some of the reasoning to why the movement became so violent to Ted Gurr's grievance theory. In his theory, he explains that frustration does not necessarily lead to violence, but when it is prolonged and consistently felt by victims, it often results in violence and anger. His term, relative deprivation, is what people think they deserve versus what they actually get. This connects to GUM in two ways. The brutal suppression for years led to an increase of violence in Aceh's belief that they deserved independence versus what they actually got, a part of Indonesia that was constantly mistreated. The final explanation for the rise in violence that I want to cover is the rise of ethnic and religious nationalism. GUM's ideology originates from the national liberation and freeing Aceh from all political control of foreign regime of Jakarta. A quote from Ditiro says, Aceh has nothing to do with Javanese Indonesia. The Netherlands declared war against the Kingdom of Aceh, not against Indonesia, which did not exist in 1873, and Indonesia still did not exist when the Netherlands was defeated and withdrew from Aceh in March of 1942. And when the Netherlands illegally transferred sovereignty to Indonesia on December 27, 1949, she had no presence in Aceh. There were numbers in the thousands of Acehnese killed and tortured, high numbers of women raped, and 16,000 plus children left as orphans. After the Dam era, 7,000 cases of human rights violations and 12 mass graves were found. Nearly all the Aceh people were affected by the suppression, and this played a big part in GUM's growth. GUM also used the internet after the fall of Suharto to call for support after the government did nothing to address the Acehnese call for justice. Islam was also used as a tool for unification, rather than a political tool. They used Islam to unite the people behind their cause for independence, uniting the different groups in Aceh against the multi-belief system of the Indonesian Republic. In conclusion, historical mistreatment, grievances such as suppression, economic mistreatment, and distrust in the government, and the rise of religious nationalism all led to the rise of violence in Aceh. GUM ended in 2005 after a tsunami went through Aceh and the group could not hold on any longer. Now, Aceh has autonomous privileges such as Sharia law, the only region in Indonesia to implement it. When we look at Indonesia, we see the beauty of Bali and the prosperity of Jakarta and Java, but we must also not forget the bloody history that held Indonesia hostage for most of the 20th century. Thank you so much, and if you have any questions, please email me at z1807874 at students.niu.edu. Stay healthy and stay safe.